in every modern era, there's a character that sort of captures the minds of men. And there are characters that entertain us, and then there are characters that sort of possess us. And they become a walking embodiment or archetype that represents part of a generation. And for me, I think that Tyler Durden is kind of that second kind. He's kind of that character that has possessed a part of the masculine psyche, and I think for good reason, right? We're more than 2 decades after Fight Club was released, and men are still quoting him. Men sometimes still idolize him. They're wearing wearing him on their t-shirts, and just as often as not, they have also completely misunderstood him, because Tyler Durden's not necessarily a role model, but he represents a part of the masculine psyche that is actually necessary for our modern times today. So in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down Tyler Durden as a psychological archetype, what you need to know about Tyler Durden from Fight Club, what is important for maybe you to embody, for you to extract and take from this archetype and this character, and maybe what you need to be wary of, or at the very least understand and try and integrate. Because Tyler Durden is a symptom. He is a symptom. He is a symptom, a character that is a symptom of emasculation. He is a character that is a symptom of disconnection from the body, from the masculine essence and core. He is a symptom of men culturally who were never initiated into their own power, and so they try and steal it. They try and take it. They don't necessarily know what to do with it. And today, I'm going to break down why Tyler Durden still resonates so deeply with men, what he really gets right about masculinity that I think is important for you to take, where he might go catastrophically wrong, or at the very least, if you were to embody that tenet of masculinity, you would find yourself having problems today, and how Tyler Durden really represents the kind of shadow masculine, or at least a part, an archetype of the shadow masculine, not integrated strength necessarily, but compensatory power. So this isn't about glorifying him. It's not about vilifying him either. It's just about taking a truthful, honest look at the character of Tyler Durden. Now, as always, I encourage you to man it forward, share this video with somebody that you know will enjoy it. And I want to hear your thoughts because, man, if there's one thing that I've noticed, so many of you guys have perspectives and opinions that are just awesome. I love hearing what you have to say. So take a listen to this and then share your thoughts on the character of Tyler Durden. Maybe you agree with some of what I said, maybe you disagree. It's all good either way. So number one, Tyler Durden as a character, as an archetype, is born from a hollow man. He is born from a hollow man. He doesn't appear out of nowhere. He's not even necessarily a real person. He is created. The narrator, who is Edward Norton, who is an unnamed person for a reason, is a man completely divorced from instinct, from physicality, from meaning, from assertiveness, from discipline, from purpose. And he tells us, I was close to being complete. I was close to being complete, but he isn't complete. He is anesthetized, right? He is castrated in a way. He lives in a world of IKEA catalogs and corporate obedience and masculinity that's sort of reduced to a materialistic consumption. So he's hollow as a man. There's no real virtues. There's no real values or principles that he stands on. You never see him have a kind of a backbone. He never actually stands up for himself. And there's another quote that I loved. He said, I had become a slave to the IKEA nesting instinct. I mean, how much more euthanized and castrated could you be, right? I've become a slave to the IKEA nesting instinct. Now, I don't necessarily know what the hell that is, but I know exactly what it is, right? It's this notion that you've sort of traded in any type of value as a man for some type of corporate materialistic representation of an identity. And this is the castrated masculine: safe, clean, productive, and utterly dead inside. Not a hint of dangerousness, not a hint of assertiveness or anger. Completely safe, completely clean, completely all about productivity, and completely dead inside. But here's the psychological truth that I think is very important. When the masculine instinct is repressed, it does not disappear. It just goes underground. And I see this with so many men, so many of the men that I have worked with that are nice guys in modern culture that have been told that masculinity is toxic, or all men are dangerous, or all men are a certain way. So many of those guys, and maybe you're one of them, have repressed any type of masculine instinct, any type of primal biological instinct. And Tyler Durden, is the antithesis of that. He is everything that the unnamed hollow narrative is not. He is aggressive. He's highly sexual. He's very embodied. He's incredibly defiant, and if nothing else, he is dangerous. And he's not just a character. He's the narrator's shadow. So Jung talked about the shadow, and the shadow, just a brief version of this, is the total sum of everything that you think you are not, everything you don't like about yourself, everything that you've denied, everything that you hate about yourself, everything that you've been told you should not be as a man gets pushed down into your shadow. And for the narrator, he's the embodiment of the modern masculine man, the man who is disconnected from any type of sexual potency, any type of aggressive nature, any type of being embodied, being defiant, being, dare I say, dangerous. So he has disowned all of his masculine energy. And Tyler Durden is that. He is the representation of the narrator's shadow. Now, Tyler Durden speaks to a hunger that modern men, I think, still feel. And that's why he's so popular, right? Tyler's words hit men because they kind of articulate something that so many of you guys, so many of us have felt. He said, "We are a generation of men raised by women. I'm wondering if another woman is really the answer that we need." Controversial? Of course, yes. But underneath, there's a deeper truth, right? Tyler isn't necessarily blaming women. He's not saying women are the fault of, this hollowed out man. He's naming the absence of masculine initiation. He's signaling and pointing towards the absence of masculine essence and masculine core. Because the truth is that most modern men were never taught how to confront their pain, how to channel or deal with their own aggression without just simply suppressing it or making it the evil part of them. Most men were not taught how to relate to power without resulting in either dominance or the complete dispersion of that power. Right? So that's what most men have been taught to do. Either you as a man are powerful by being dominant, or you are powerful by neglecting that you have any power, or being ashamed that you as a man have power. So Tyler steps in as a kind of counterfeit initiator. And this is what so many men do. I did this myself, but many of you have probably done this. I call it a pseudo-initiation. And this pseudo-initiation is something where you as a man will try and jumpstart an initiation by bottoming out in your life. And so many men, what they end up doing is they blow their lives up, not intentionally, but unconsciously, to see if they can be initiated into their masculine essence, into their discipline. Can they initiate themselves into facing their pain, being more assertive? Can they initiate themselves into these more masculine traits that they have otherwise avoided entirely? And Tyler's character really offers men a few things. He offers them pain instead of numbness. So, the Fight Club really is this embodiment of you gotta go and confront your pain. You have to feel your pain. You have to be in the pain. You can't avoid it. Otherwise, if you avoid your pain, you're just this numbed out, hollow version of a man. And so he creates these underground fight clubs where guys literally go and beat the living shit out of each other. Why? So they can feel something. What do they have to feel? They have to feel their pain. It's why the first line in my book, Men's Work, was a man's work begins in pain. It's a very similar essence. Tyler's character also offers men brotherhood instead of isolation. Notice the bonds that are built in this fight club. And he also offers them a chance to take a risk instead of staying safe. So he trades out all of these things that modern men have really adopted consciously or unconsciously: numbness, isolation, safety, complacency, compliance, complete obedience. And he offers them risk, brotherhood, pain, meaning, some type of direction. And Fight Club really works because it does something that modern culture almost never allows men to do: feel into the intensity inside of them. Feel the intensity inside of them. Feel their bodies. And he says, how much can you know about yourself if you've never been in a fight, right? How much can you really know about yourself as a man if you've never been in a fight? And honestly, I would tend to agree with that. It's no knock to any of you guys that have never been in a fight. I'm not advocating for you to go and get into a fist fight later on today, but I can tell you that having been in a number of fights and having known men that have been in a number of fights, there's something about who you are in the face of that. The fear that you might feel, the sort of the excitement around it. There's a part of you as a man that knows that you are capable of being physically dangerous if necessary. And if you've never tested that in a professional way by going to do jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai or kickboxing or boxing, or gotten into some type of bar fight or whatever it is, altercation, there's always a lingering question of, would I actually be able to protect myself? And if I'm not able to actually protect myself, then how am I supposed to protect other people around me? And for the majority of the men that I've met that have never been able to answer that question, that unanswered question can really play a plague on that man. And it's not about violence, right? This is the misconception. I think a lot of people, we hear what I'm saying and they'll say, well, you're just advocating for violence. No, I'm advocating for contact with reality. Contact with reality, because pain wakes men up. And the truth is that men are very physical creatures. Biologically, when you look at the male part of the species for any mammal, they are almost always the more aggressive part of the species. And every man knows that there's this sort of biological imperative inside of him that pulls him towards a more fierce type of physicality. And if you as a man aren't sure who you are or who you will become when asked to be physically violent or faced with physical violence, or put in a situation where you're threatened with physical violence, you don't know, you don't have a real understanding of a huge part of who you are. And this is what Tyler Durden's character kind of understands. It's something crucial about men and masculinity, which is that comfort makes men weak. Comfort makes men weak. And he is the kind of defiant rebel that is trying to burn down the proverbial couch, the Homer Simpson couch of our generation, and saying, light that shit on fire. Go put yourself into confronting situations. And again, it's not advocating for literally going and getting into a fist fight, in a parking lot underneath the parking garage underneath a building. It's go and put yourself in situations where pain wakes you up as a man. Now, you as a man likely have many areas of your life where you are in pain. And it's the avoiding of that pain that is causing more and more weakness. The desire to numb that out with more comfort, with more video games and porn, and glaze over it with weed or booze or whatever it is, to walk away from the hurt that you're carrying inside of you. Now, here's the good. What's the good about Tyler Durden? Okay, and then we'll talk about what's not great. Tyler reclaims the instinctual masculine, right? Let's be honest. Tyler Durden isn't wrong about everything. And again, this can be hard for some people because they'll watch the movie and they're like, this guy's like an anarchist. He creates chaos. He's a psychopath. He's the representation of like a psychotic break in the main character. But really, he represents a necessary rebellion against consumer masculinity, against corporate emasculation. He represents a kind of rebellion against infantilizing men, waiting for permission, right? So he's kind of a rebellion against the men that are really Peter Pans, right? They're the puer aeternus. They're these eternal boys that are weak and soft and don't really know who they are as men. They don't have any connection to a type of spine or virtues or principles. They don't have anything to really be in an integrity with. They can't stand up for themselves. And so he's a rebellion against the overly coddled, anti-risk-taking, completely emasculated men of our culture and society. And he reminds men, you are not your job. You're not your job. You are not your bank account, and you are not your possessions. Now, that flies in the face for a lot of modern men, even men that are, especially for men that are hyper successful, right? He says the things that you own end up owning you. The things that you own end up owning you. And he reintroduces physical initiation, brotherhood, forged through shared ordeal, right? So there's a physicality. You have to be physical as a man. There's brotherhood that happens when there's a kind of conflict that you share in going through, and ultimately a confrontation with death. And these are all a part of ancient masculine rites. Men have always needed to transition from boy to man. They've always needed trial. They've always needed risk. They've always needed pain. And they've always needed structure. And finally, they've always needed to have some type of an ordeal where they reckon with their power as a man. And the problem isn't that Tyler names all of this. The problem is ultimately where he takes it. And so let's talk about the shadow. Let's talk about the shadow, because Tyler Durden really is the archetype of power, masculine power, without consciousness. And here's the key distinction that I think a lot of men miss when they watch this movie. Tyler Durden is not integrated masculinity. He's not integrated masculinity. He's not the king that we should look or aim towards, right? He is compensatory masculinity. And this really means power without responsibility. He doesn't care what happens. He doesn't care about the outcomes. He doesn't care about who gets hurt. He doesn't care about who's wounded or what the sort of result is. It's really strength without any type of conscience. It is aggression without any type of containment or discernment. Now, there's one big piece that I think Tyler Durden's character misses, and it misses intentionally, because again, this is about showing the polarity, the duality of modern men, right? The duality of modern men is really exemplified in this movie. You've got the hollow man that has no real identity, no real spine or backbone, no ability to stand up for what he wants, is just kind of, a brainwashed zombie that goes to work day in and day out and, is sitting on the toilet ordering stuff from IKEA. And then you've got this absolute monster that is, chaos and destruction. It's all about power and strength and sex. So here's what is missing. What's missing is mastery. Tyler Durden does not teach mastery. He teaches possession. He teaches and just notice how he operates, right? He demands obedience. He erases any type of individuality, and he punishes any type of dissent. He even says, you are not special. You are not beautiful and a unique snowflake, right? At first, this probably feels liberating for some men, but psychologically, it's the destruction of the self. And Tyler replaces one tyranny, the tyranny of external materialism and modernity, that the narrator is completely addicted to, right? If anything, the narrator is really an archetype that is addicted to modernity. He is completely enraptured with modernity and materialism. And so Tyler's trying to break men out of that, but he does it in such a way as to bring men into tyranny. And right? From the corporate father to the cult leader father, right? So Tyler kind of represents this antithetical nature, right? There's this faceless corporate sort of paternal entity that the narrator is stuck underneath, and then he represents this sort of tyrannical authoritarian figure that then reigns supreme over these men's lives. And this is what happens when we as men do not integrate our shadow. The shadow becomes tyrannical. So we have to be careful of that. We have to pay attention to that. And in some ways, Tyler Durden becomes the father that he hates, right? This is the deepest irony of Fight Club that I don't know if I've seen get talked about anywhere. Tyler despises authority. He talks about it endlessly, and yet he becomes authoritarian. He despises control, except he deploys control endlessly. He creates extremely rigid rules, and he talks about despising hierarchy, yet he crowns himself at the top. He takes the crown. This is classic shadow possession. This is what happens this is the trick that some men fall into, is that they go from the numb, the complacent, the comfortable, the sucking at the teat of modernity and materialism, and the pendulum swings to the other side. And this is the classic shadow possession, where unintegrated masculinity always or can swing to extremes, from passivity to domination, from numbness to destruction, from obedience to a type of complete fascism. And so Tyler doesn't end up freeing these men. He kind of colonizes them. And I almost hate to use that word because it's so overused in today's culture, but he's trying to liberate them. He's liberating them from one oppressive structure, but unfortunately, because he's uninitiated and he's an extreme shadow archetype, he doesn't initiate them into something more whole. He initiates them into something as oppressive, just in a different form. And there's in the movie, there's Project Mayhem. Project Mayhem is not liberation. It seems like it at first, but as it starts to unfold, it's really mass dissociation. It's really a mass dissociation ritual. And this is where Tyler mirrors something dangerous in modern masculinity movements, in my opinion. When men don't heal their relationships with power, they seek identity through destruction. All right. So when we do not heal our relationship to power, when we don't understand what our relationship with power is, and we move from being disempowered and emasculated and feeling weak, we can quickly move into this power drunk, power hungry, power abusive form that seeks destruction. So what do we finally need to know about Tyler Durden and us as modern men? A couple important things. Tyler Durden didn't really disappear. He just sort of evolved. And you see him today in the rage bait masculinity content online, the ideological extremism, the men who confuse complete dominance and submission with healthy, grounded leadership. And really, you see it when you as men, or the men in your lives, burn their lives down just to feel alive. Right? You're just trying to feel something, because we have been taught as men that, and I wrote about this in my book, that strength comes through suppression. It is the biggest killer for men, because what men end up doing is suppressing all of the things that culture and society and people around them are telling you that you should not be. So you end up suppressing your anger. You end up suppressing your aggression. You end up suppressing your compassion or your love or your strength or your sense of value and worth. And what ends up happening is it bubbles up to the surface, and you end up having this type of forced initiation experience where you collapse and crater your life just to see, unconsciously, again, you're not doing it intentionally, but just to see if you can climb your way back out of it. And Tyler represents a real masculine need to be expressed in a psychological and pathological way. Men do not need to become Tyler. You do not need to become like Tyler Durden. You need to integrate what Tyler Durden represents. you need to integrate strength with accountability. You need to integrate aggression, or at the very least anger, with purpose, and brotherhood with boundaries and a sense of individual identity, right? The goal isn't to destroy the world, it's to build something more meaningful than what currently exists. And that is what does not happen in the movie. So lastly, the lesson that Tyler Durden teaches, if you're really willing to look at it and see it and put it into yourself, is that he's actually not the answer. You know, at the very end of the movie, it's complete chaos, and you're left being like, holy shit, like what a wild ride. How did it unfold like that? So he's not the answer. He's the alarm, right? He's the alarm bell. He shows us that when boys are not initiated, when men are shamed for their power, masculinity is reduced to a kind of productivity, and masculinity is attempted to be eradicated, and that will always come back up in a destructive form. Here's the real truth. The cure for emasculation, if you as a man have felt emasculated in your life in any way, shape, or form, it is not destruction. It is not complete dominance. It is disciplined power. Real masculine initiation doesn't happen necessarily in basements or the parking lots, parking garages underneath buildings. It happens through taking responsibility continually. It happens through taking ownership over your own actions, your own aggression, your own violence, your own anger, your own failures. And it happens through being of service. The truth of initiation that's actually not taught in Fight Club is that the whole point of any type of initiation experience throughout the human history of the human species is that a boy goes out and returns a man who's more capable, more competent of contributing to the community. That's the point of initiation, is actually to help you be more capable and more competent. And when you as a man implode your life and you sabotage, what really is happening is you are trying to get to a point where you tear down everything that you're not, so that you can rebuild yourself in a version that is more capable and competent of contributing to something meaningful in your life, right? So purpose is, in this case, bigger than the ego. And Tyler Durden is the shadow knocking at the door, truly. The question isn't whether men feel him. I think every man feels him to some degree. The question is whether they will integrate the archetype and the character or be consumed by him. And I think this is what we see playing out online quite a bit right now. There's some key archetypes that are happening, right? There's sort of like the weak, fragile, frail man. There's the Tyler Durdens of the world that are just chaos and destruction-oriented and power-oriented. And then you've really got the Joker, which I'm going to do a different series on, right? You've got people like Nick Fuentes that are, he's the archetypal Joker. Like you just can't pin him down. Everything that he says is a deflection. There's a type of ownership that he deploys of just like, yeah, I'm a virgin, so what? I've said the N-word, so what? And he's really this embodiment of like, it's all a big joke. Like this is what it is now. It's all a big joke. So we have these sort of divergent archetypes within our culture, and we have to be careful of where we start to lay our swords and shields. Because as men, we still have swords and shields. It doesn't matter if we live in the most civilized country in the world. That's part of the masculine essence, right? The goal isn't to fight the world itself. The goal is to fight for a world that is better than the one that exists today. That is part of the point, right? The goal is also to become a man strong enough to stand within the world that exists without burning it down. And that's where Tyler Durden kind of takes us astray, is that he just wants to burn down the structure. There's no building. There's no building something better than exists. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for tuning into this one. I hope that you really enjoyed it. Let me know who else you would like me to tackle in these series. I'm going to be doing a series of archetypes I'll probably be doing Gandalf next and maybe Odysseus. So let me know if there's other characters that you'd like me to touch on, and let me know what you thought. What did I miss? What would you like to comment on? What do you think needs to be added into this commentary? Anything that you disagreed with? Happy to hear all of it. Comment below. I'll see you next time.